Thank you all for joining me and Noam Vassal this evening or this morning, wherever you are. We would like to thank Nefesh B'Nefesh for providing Olim and potential Olim with such vital information and abundance of information that will no doubt make your journey to Israel, whenever it may be, in the next month or in the next year or any time in the future, a pleasant and a successful one. Shortly, Noam will present about how to find a home and how to budget for a home, and I will speak about the legal process of renting homes and purchasing homes. Unfortunately, we have a very short amount of time to speak, and we will only be able to point out key points. So if you have any additional questions, please don't hesitate to contact us by email or in the comments. And please don't hesitate to check out our Facebook page and our website for further information and videos. We have an abundance of videos coming your way, so make sure that you see them all and you like us and friend us so that we can follow us so that we can provide that information to you. We will be discussing secondhand homes and rental agreements of 1 to 3 year leases. We will not be discussing purchasing on paper or diur להשכרה, long-term rental. So if you have any questions about those matters, please get them our way. COVID-19 season has been a crazy time for all of us. It has caused all kinds of limitations in the field of social distancing and in not being able to process paperwork. And it has limited us with signing of documents and authenticizing signatures and being able to conduct payments through banks and other transfers. But we managed to get it through. Noam and I have so many stories where we managed to get it going. And although there are difficulties and although the process is a little bit more strenuous than it was before, it is definitely doable. And tonight we would like to present to you how, no matter how challenging times are, we're able to get the process done. If you have the proper information, if you set your expectations straight, and if you are prepared for your next transaction, you can do it from afar. I'm just trying to share the screen. Hold on 1 second. Hold on. Great. Okay, here we go. Okay, so I would like you to keep in mind that the information we're providing should be regarded as general information only, and if you have any particular questions, please discuss them with an attorney. When you discuss renting versus buying, there are many considerations that you have to take into account. I will only want to point out a few of them when you make your decisions. So firstly, let's discuss renting. When you rent a property, there's no doubt that only by living in a place are you able to check for yourself and verify that the place is actually right for yourself. You may get lots of advice from your Aliyah consultants and from your friends and from your families. You may have visited certain neighborhoods yourself and feel like they're perfect for you, but only when you live in a place will you actually know that it is the right place for you. And when you get into a relatively short-term commitment like a rental, you're able to stay there till the end of your lease. Sometimes you can get out early depending on your lease, and you're not married to your landlord. You're not in a long-term commitment. In addition, if you are able to get rent subsidies, you may want to enjoy these subsidies. You will not be able to receive any of these assistance if you own a property. When you solidify a deal from afar in a rental agreement, you are able to just negotiate an agreement, send it over by email. Your landlord will send it back to you. You need to initial each page with a full signature at the end, and you will all be ready to go as soon as you send it back. You can FedEx back the original draft. You may be requested to give a deposit, and set to, you're done. You're all set for your next move. And if you want to negotiate an agreement in English, if you are renting from a foreigner or even an Israeli who speaks good English, they may be willing to sign an agreement in English so you can negotiate an agreement in a language that you actually understand. That could be extremely helpful. On the other hand, if you are able to negotiate buying a property, you may prefer You may prefer to buy a property if you're able to afford one. I can't tell you how many times I have seen clients who like to purchase in certain areas, but they decide to first rent in order to make sure their place is actually good for them and the community works. And they rent first, they decide the place is perfect for them, and by the time they want to move in, they could no longer afford to purchase a place. Buying in Israel, when Israel is one of the strongest economies in the world, you are able to invest your money in a solid investment. So chances are, even if your property doesn't go up in value tremendously, it will not lose value, and you will have your money tied down into a solid investment. When you buy in a place where you're not necessarily happy, you can always sell it or rent it out and rent elsewhere, and your money is tied into a good investment. I can't tell you how many times I have seen people come to Israel after selling their properties abroad, having an abundance of money to make aliyah, and then once they come here, they don't necessarily have the proper financial planning. They don't figure out where their money is going, and somehow the money just seeps through their fingers eventually without even knowing what the money was spent on. It could have been on groceries or in furniture. And if you don't have a good plan at hand, then your money might disappear. So therefore, even if you decide not to buy, you're renting at first, make sure that you have a good financial planning and you know where your money is going. And if that plan doesn't work out for you, not everyone comes with an abundance of money, or sometimes your plans change, make sure that over time you assess your account and you make sure you have a plan in place. Now, in terms of mortgage considerations, I can tell you that many clients of mine have purchased while they were still in the States. They were in a situation where they had excellent jobs when they were still living in the States. So they filed for a mortgage while they were there. And at that time, they were able to get excellent mortgage rates since they had excellent jobs. And they knew that when they were making aliyah, they will not be working when they first come. Either they were on sabbatical or sitting and learning for a couple of years. So actually filing while they were there and had good jobs, they had the ability to secure excellent mortgage. They can get 50% loan. We're going to discuss mortgages further in a couple of minutes, but they were able to secure their loan there at 50%. And when they made aliyah, they were able to get an additional 25%, and that assisted them with the process. So again, I am not telling you that there is one right way to do things. It all depends on your financial ability and on your personal preferences, and there's no right and wrong answer. Now, I would like to discuss with you a little bit more about how the process of rental works in Israel, and then we will talk about buying. I'm trying to move on to the next slide. Hold on, bear with me. If it doesn't work, we're just going to continue without it. Here we go. Good, success. Okay, so when we negotiate rental agreements, what's important to know is that when you reach your rental and you start looking for different properties, you should be checking what is included in the price of your rental. The norm in Israel is that unless items are specified in your contract, we're talking about appliances and furniture, they will not necessarily be there at the time when you get your key. This is the norm in Israel. So if there are specific things, items that you want, such as built-in closets or furniture or a fridge or a washing machine, make sure that it is in your contract. Discuss that with the agent or with your landlord before coming to Israel. I can't tell you how many clients of mine have gotten into fights because they assumed certain things were going to be included, and when they came to the property, they weren't there. Now, if you've secured a property with an agent and you did not have any relationship, you have not spoken with your potential landlord in advance, you should definitely try to create a relationship with your landlord. Now, On the one hand, it is important that you get to know who you are dealing with and who you're getting into bed with, so to speak, when tying yourself into a relationship. And it is very, very important that you make a good impression on the landlord so that he feels like he can trust you and he feels like he can give you a property that's worth hundreds of thousands of dollars and maybe more, and he can sleep at night because he knows that his property is in good hands. So many times landlords would prefer to give up on 100 shekel addition in their rent, or prefer to get less of a security, or they're willing to negotiate terms that are better for the tenant if they know that they are happy with the tenant who is in their property and is going to take care of the property for them. Now, during COVID-19 season, when we know that not everything goes our way, so many times our money will not become available to us when we expect. Sometimes our paperwork will not get processed, or the Jewish agency will call you the last minute for an additional piece of paper that they want you to file. In situations like that, you want to make sure that you have a landlord who is your friend on the other side, so that if anything goes wrong, you're not dealing with just a person whose name is on a piece of paper, but you're dealing with someone who you feel like there's a personal need to be their friend. I can't tell you how many times I actually suggest, to whether it's to my tenants or to my buyers, when they sign an agreement with their landlord or with their seller, to send them flowers the day after the contract is signed, so that the other side feels like they want to water the lawn and they want to repair in the best way anything that goes wrong the day after signing a contract. This way they feel like they're in a situation where they're your friend and not just the opposite side. The next thing that is important to do, which might sound a little bit strange coming from the States or from anywhere else, is get yourself a real estate lawyer in order to help you negotiate your rental agreement. The reason for that is because many times rental agreements are very one-sided to protect the interests of the owner of the property. And the worst kinds of agreements are the kind that are just printed off of the internet. Those are usually even more one-sided to protect the landlord's interests. And the reason for that is, as we said, the landlord is giving a complete stranger a property that's worth hundreds of thousands of dollars and even more. He wants to make sure that you will take care of the property properly, and therefore he will make sure his interests are protected. But at the same time, you as a tenant want to make sure that your interests are protected as well. It doesn't necessarily mean that at the same time we can't protect the landlord as well. Time, conditions, physical state of the property, all different needs of particular situations that may arise should all be in that contract, and therefore make sure that an expert is there for you to protect you and make sure that the contract is stipulated the way you want it to be worded. The next thing that needs to be done, whether you decide to take a lawyer or decide not to take a lawyer, the next thing you need to do is verify that the landlord is the landlord. This seems like it would be a given, but the last thing you would want to do is pack your family with your 5 kids, land at Rehov Milman in Yerushalayim, number 26. That is the address in your contract. Knock on the door, and the guy who opens the door would say, "Who are you? I never heard of you. You think I rented out an apartment? I think you have a mistake." So in order to avoid such a situation, make sure that the owner of the property is willing to rent it out. And if the person who presents themselves as the landlord is not the owner, make sure he has proper power of attorney, and make sure, especially in a situation where there's so many investors in Israel and owners of property don't necessarily reside in their apartments, make sure in these situations that the landlord is actually entitled to rent it out. Now, I would like to just give you a few points that should be in your contract. There are many, many more. The first is a yearly contract, which is usually the norm in Israel. The short-term agreement is usually for 1 year when we're talking about regular rentals. Make sure that you have an option to renew your rent. A year goes by so quickly, you will not even be done unpacking your last box before the year will be up. You want to make sure that the option is worded in a way to allow you as the tenant to continue renting and negotiate ahead of time what the price will be the next year, what the rent price will be the next year. Try to keep it at the same price or stipulate an increase that is minimal. It's all a matter of negotiation, but make sure you can stay if you'd like to stay. The next issue that should be discussed is wear and tear. Now, the norm is that in Israel, tenants pay for any damage that is caused by them maliciously, but any regular wear and tear, things break in properties, should be covered by the landlord. According to law, though, the landlord only has to repair any damage that is not kal erech, meaning that it's not a cheap repair, and only if the damage is not destructive to regular use of the property. So it could be clear that a major pipe that bursts in the apartment is something that is a major issue, and therefore the landlord has to cover it no matter what. But when there's a trickling toilet, or when a blind doesn't close all the way, are those situations that make the apartment not livable? Not necessarily. So situations like that, because in order to avoid conflict, please make sure that in your contract you ensure that all of the responsibilities of the landlord and the tenant are very, very clear. Have a work of action in place, a plan, so that everyone understands their responsibility, both you and the landlord, and you know exactly where you stand. Also, in terms of wear and tear, make sure that there's a list of professionals that you turn to. Make sure that you can get reimbursed for anything that you fix, and try to be able to deduct any cost that you can off of the rent as well. In terms of securities, the landlord will demand that you take a security in order to ensure that you provide a security in order to ensure that you pay your rent, in order to ensure that you leave on time and that you do not leave any damage when you leave. And for that reason, he will ask you to provide a security. There are securities that are better for the landlord and securities that are better for you as a tenant. The type of securities such as a promissory note, or a personal check, or having guarantors sign on the agreement. In all of these type of securities, the landlord has to go to the collection agency or go to court in order to cash in on these type of securities. But the securities of the type of a monetary bank guarantee or a monetary security, just cash giving to your landlord, those are type of securities where the landlord is holding the money in his pocket, and you have to sue him if you feel like he was wrong in collecting and not giving back these securities. So for that reason, I would highly recommend that you negotiate that any type of security, such as a bank guarantee or cash that is placed by the landlord, would be placed even by his lawyer or by a trusted third party, so that it is 1 degree of separation, a little bit distant from the landlord, so he doesn't just keep it. Now, let's discuss how, last point is currency of payments. If you can, try to negotiate that your agreements will be in the currency that you hold. If you're holding dollars, try to negotiate a dollar agreement in your rental. It is not always possible. Many times your landlord will require shekels because he needs it for any use in Israel. But in an environment where so many investors are buying properties and many Israelis invest their money abroad as well, you may be able to negotiate a dollar agreement, and that'll save you lots of money when you have to spare yourself dealing with the exchange fees and transfer fees that are linked to this. Now, I would like to discuss the process of buying a home. Of course, we did not cover all the issues of rentals, but please contact me with any questions. And again, stay tuned for videos on the matter. Signing of a purchase agreement. Signing of a purchase agreement in Israel is the most crucial part of the whole sales process. Once a contract is signed, the buyer is bound by it, and any breach or alteration of the terms of the contract may cause serious implications and monetary consequences, such as penalties. So as opposed to a system like in the United States, where the delegation of responsibility is only at the closing stage, and until that process comes about, you can decide to change your mind, you can do your inquiries, you can file for a mortgage, and if you don't get it, you can cancel the deal. In Israel, it doesn't work that way. In Israel, we are bound to a deal at the time when we sign the contract. At contract, all the deeds and documents are signed and are kept by the seller's lawyer in escrow until you pay in full. And you get, and at that point, you make the payments to the seller already at the time of signing. You will be paying 10 to 20% of the contract price. You will get a caution note in the registry to protect your right, but you are expected to pay that money at signing. And the tax authorities need to be reported that a deal will be that a deal was signed within 30 days of signing of contract. You're in a situation where if your mortgage isn't approved, you will be liable for penalties. You're in a situation where you cannot just walk away because you changed your mind. And it is almost unheard of. Very, very few circumstances can you sign a contingent agreement. And for that reason, it is important that you do not, I'm trying to move on, hold on. Okay, for that reason, it is important that you do not sign any documents unless you understand what it is that you are signing. So in Israel, even a wrinkled napkin that has been used and you can see a coffee stain on it with lipstick on it may seem very informal, might be a binding contract. It is enough that a piece of paper has very few terms to make it a contract that is enforceable in court. And therefore, make sure that if you are asked to sign a registration form or a document of memorandum of intentions or any document that will bind you to a deal, you understand what you are signing. And make sure that you understand all the terms that go with it, and make sure that if you have to give a deposit, you can get it back. Now, during Corona season, it could be that you actually do want to be bound into a deal. It could be that you do want the seller to keep a property for you. You do want to give a down payment, and you want to be in a situation where you are able to process the deal slowly because you are stuck with paperwork in the United States. So there are situations where in a normal time we would not get into these corners, but right now you may want to. Just understand that you may be bound into a deal, understand what you're signing, consult with a lawyer before you sign any piece of paper so you understand the ramifications. And if you have to sign a document, make sure that all the different terms are discussed in advance, or mark in your document that they will be discussed in a future document, which will be your binding contract. Now, the next thing you need to do, because of the implications, is put together a team to perform inspections in order to ensure that you really want to get into this deal. So the first inspection you need to do is a legal inspection. In Israel, there's no such thing as title insurance. It is just a different type of system. And in Israel, it is your lawyer who makes sure that there are no legal blemishes, there are no third-party claims on the property, there are no mortgages, no liens, no debts. All that is your lawyer's responsibility to check, and he will do it before signing a contract. In addition, there may be times when your seller will suggest that you use the same lawyer as he does in order to represent you in a transaction, and in Israel, that is legal. I believe it is almost impossible in most circumstances for a seller's lawyer to represent the buyer at the same time and to not be in a conflict of interest. It is enough, and we spoke about the implications of COVID-19, that your money does not become available when you want. It is enough that you expect everything to go well, but it doesn't work out exactly according to plan. You need a trusted party to be there for you and represent you in case anything goes wrong. So I highly recommend you do not agree to have one lawyer represent both you and the seller. The physical inspection has to be done by an engineer, just like you would not buy a car without having a mechanic look under the hood before you buy it. You would not buy a property without first having it fully inspected. Make sure that you have the walls inspected for dampness. You would have structure issues checked. You may want to check for radiation and for lead. All these different things are done by a property inspection done by an engineer. And the next is the zoning issues. In Israel, as part of the culture, the customs, the reality, it's just a place where we survive many times by divine intervention. And what I mean by that is that many times we just say, yeah, beseder, while not bothering to obtain the proper hitarei b'niyah, the building permits that are necessary. You will find properties that expanded, that the owners expanded in every direction. You can have a closed-in mirpeset, a closed-in porch. You can have a roof closed in, a basement closed in, a halal, an additional space in the back of the house that has been added on to a property, and many times these areas are not legal. Now, many times the seller will enjoy these properties and not bother making sure that they are legal or getting any of the permits because it may be a whole hassle. But at the time of sale, it is very important that you make sure that everything is legal. Because you are going to take upon yourself any responsibilities in the future. If someone comes knocking on the door, even years down the line, you will still be liable even if you purchase the property that way. And secondly, there may be delays in being able to transfer the rights to your name. If an inspector comes during the time right after the contract is signed, it may be a whole mess to get it done. So, and to get it legalized at that point. So what you want to do is make sure that there is no illegal building, and if there is illegal building, you have to understand with an architect or with an appraiser who will come and check the property, what can be made legal, if at all, and at what expense. And if you decide to buy it the way it is, you have to understand that you're taking upon yourself the responsibility of illegal building. And in addition, you have to make sure that if you're planning to take a mortgage in order to finance your purchase, you should know that a property with illegal building will be appraised by the appraiser at a much lower value than the contract price. So you have to take that into account if you're planning to take a mortgage. Now, that brings us into the issue of financing and mortgages. So because of the implications of signing a contract, make sure that you know when your money is going to become available to you, and how you're planning on paying. If you're planning on taking a mortgage, you should know that you can receive 50% financing if you are living abroad and are not an Israeli, and you are not an Israeli citizen. You can get an additional 10% as a loan. If you are living in Israel and are not a citizen, you can get a 70% mortgage. And if you are an Israeli who made aliyah, if you're a foreigner making aliyah, you can get 75% to your money. You may be able to get an additional loan on top of these amounts, but in general, this is what you should expect. Now, a very important matter is to get a preliminary approval in writing that you are able to get a mortgage before you sign on an agreement. The mortgage industry is a very diverse industry, and not just that any bank may offer you different terms of mortgages and different types of mortgages, but every branch of every bank will give you different proposals. It is a shuk like Shuk Machne Yehuda. You never know what to expect, and because of that, I highly recommend that you consult with a mortgage broker. There are excellent mortgage brokers out there. It is not a licensed field, so be very careful and make sure that you do your checkups on mortgage brokers before you decide to hire one to work on your behalf and help you. In terms of transfer of money from abroad, because of the implications of the Foreign Account Tax Compliance Act, Israel is signed on these agreements, and any financial institution in Israel is responsible to report to the American authorities any transfer or any activity that is done by an American citizen in Israel. The idea is in order to ensure transparency and in order to ensure that there's no money laundering going on, in order to bring it to a minimum. This act is the act makes the banks responsible and any financial institution responsible to provide this information at any given time. And because of this, it is very important that your money is set up in accounts that are on your name, and that is very transparent to see that the agreements that you sign, whether it's a rental agreement or a purchase agreement, matches with its name to the origin of the money. And there's a very clear track of where the money is going. You have to ensure that you will be able to provide a document from a lawyer or from an accountant showing and proving that this money is kosher money, because otherwise you will have a very difficult time transferring this money that is transferred from the Cayman Islands without any explanation on a name of a foreign account of a company that is registered on some foreign name will be impossible to transfer money to Israel from such an account. The aggravation and the time that you might waste in order to try to make these explanations are very, very difficult, and therefore I highly recommend that you make sure that your money is set up very, very clearly. Last topic is purchase tax. When buying a property from abroad, and if you are a foreign resident and a foreign resident and a foreign citizen, you'll be taxed as an investor at 8 to 10%. If you make Aliyah within 2 years from the date of signing of contract, you'll be completely exempt on tax on the first 1.7 million shekel and change, and above that you'll be taxed at 3.5%, 5%, 8%, and 10%. An additional scale that is available to you is the Oleh scale. According to this scale, you pay from the first shekel and up to 1.8 million shekel and change 0.5%, and above that 5%. So if you were to ask me, why would I ever want to use the scale if I can get a complete exemption of tax according to the sole resident scale? Over here, you would only pay from 1.7 and on, 3.5 and above that you'd pay tax. The answer is that you're correct. It is not always worthwhile to use the Oleh scale. It is only worthwhile in 3 situations. 1, if you are purchasing a second property in addition to your sole residence. 2, if you were to purchase a business or an office or land for the purpose of establishing your business or your home. And thirdly, if you were to buy a property that exceeds the amount of 5,650,226 shekel, even if it's your first property. So with this, I'd like to conclude and move on the speaking panel to Noam, who's going to give you lots of insight. I thank you and I welcome any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Debbie. So I'd like to first start off with thanking Nefesh B'Nefesh for creating this panel. I hope you all gain from this as much as you're trying to gain from this. So I'd like to talk now about purchasing from overseas right now at the Corona time with travel limitations. Can it be done? Well, it takes some creativity and it can be done. Using apps, obviously, like WhatsApp, Zoom, Skype, Google, and others helps buyers view the homes without breaking quarantine or violating social distancing protocols. Okay, there's also virtual open houses, like you can ask an agent to go to the house and look at it for you and give you ins and outs of what the places can be like. And you'll be able to see it as the same that you're requested to see it when you're there. Can you look up at the ceiling? Can you look down at the floors? Things like that. Viewing more available homes without the limitations of traffic, heat waves, or risks of getting sick. Our office offers also agents to video chat you through open houses of our office's inventory or on any other office you find something interesting by. Now, I'd like to also concentrate on some news. There's now is a good time, okay? There's a 50% rise in Aliyah applications from the US and more expected. Nefesh B'Nefesh and Jewish Agency say they saw the greatest increase in immigrant applications from the New York and New Jersey area. So if you're from that area, you might have friends of yours or people that you know that are looking to make Aliyah right now, and that means you won't be alone. Obviously, this is also something, as you see, that's in other areas of the world as well, and in all the world in total, completely. Now, the next thing is how to prepare for house hunting. Okay, know that there's no right time to buy. If you find the perfect home now, don't risk losing it because you're trying to guess where the housing market's going and those risks of the interest, where it's going now. Is it going to be higher or lower? At the end of the day, you can remortgage and you can, everything's volatile in this market, and you can find something that's an amazing mitzvah, and you'll be able to buy it, and at the end, down the line, you'll be able to remortgage it. Don't ask for too many opinions. It's natural to want reassurance for such a big decision, but too many ideas from too many people will make it much harder to make a decision. Focus on the wants and needs of the people who will actually be living in the home. I have clients who for 20 years have been coming back and forth to Jerusalem, and every time they're here, they ask questions of, is this a good place? Is that a good place? And their friends always say, oh, that's a great place, but there's a mitzvah down the street. Come back, come with me, go there, go there. And every time they come back, they take into consideration the house they lost and they could have had. Except that no house is ever perfect. If it's the right location, the yard may be a bit smaller than you had hoped. The kitchen may be perfect, but the roof needs repair. Make a list of your top priorities and focus on those things that are most important to you. Let the minor ones go also, accept that a little buyer's remorse is inevitable and will most likely pass. When we purchased this, the house we're in right now, this was a first-hand apartment, and that's one of the reasons we didn't want to talk about first-hand apartments, because there's a lot of aggravation with that. For the first year of living here, there was a lot of remorse, and thankfully now this is the best investment I've ever done, and I'm very, very happy with that. Don't try to be a killer negotiator. Okay, negotiation is definitely a part of the real estate process, but trying to win by getting an extra low price or refusing to budge may cost you the home you love. These days, in pre-corona time, we have negotiations stuck at less than $5,000 because people are trying to be killer negotiators, and it's a shame to miss out the house you've loved and got to the conclusion you want to buy just for $5,000. Remember, your home doesn't exist in a vacuum. Don't get caught up in the physical aspects of the house itself that you forget about important issues such as noise level, access to amenities, and other aspects that also have a big impact on your quality of life. Sometimes a minor renovation could fix up that little thing that's causing the misunderstanding of what's important in this apartment or property. Choose a home first because you love it, then think about appreciation. A home is still considered a great investment, but its most important role is as a comfortable, safe place to live. In today's market, with supply low and demand on the rise, we see a lot of interest in the market again. Now, this is the interesting, I've seen a lot of questions on the bottom there. What are purchase costs? So there's service providers here, okay? Some of this might be things you could skip. Some are more important. I'd like to go through. Basically, there's a 12% consideration that you should put into the price that you have. Okay, you have the real estate agent fee, which is 2% plus VAT. Lawyer, which is 1% plus VAT. That could go a little higher, low, because of how complex the deal is. And then you have purchase tax. Okay, so this could vary between 0 to 10% depending on the price of the apartment, just like Debbie showed in the previous slides. An appraiser. Now, this is sometimes something where you could see those things, as Debbie mentioned, like the zoning problems and the heter not being on the permit properly. And this could go between 800 if you're with a mortgage, you get this from the bank at a subsidized rate, up to 3,500 shekels plus VAT. Could be higher depending on the size and extensive report, the check that they have to do. An inspector in Israel, that runs between 500 plus VAT for a verbal report, up to 5,000 plus VAT, depending size of the property and depth of the report. My office offers the inspector as a 500 plus VAT verbal report as part of our service to our clients. But if you'd like a more extensive report, that would be something you'd have to decide. We have mortgage brokers. This varies on amount taken. So you could take basically more or less 1% of the amount taken. That's what they usually charge, plus VAT. And conversion and transfer costs. That depends how much you're transferring. I would recommend going into negotiation with your bank. It might not seem like such a good idea, but it's definitely doable, and there's a lot of room to wiggle there. And then you have the lift shipping costs, which is also something you have to take into consideration. And there's also the title registration. That could work up to $1,000 sometimes, so you have to take that into consideration. Now, there are some very important differences between Israel and the USA. We have negotiation here. Usually, if you're in front of an Israeli seller, the negotiation will be in shekels. If you're looking to make a dollar, obviously that would be better if you have someone who could do the transaction details of the conversion cost. That would be the best, but you need to do the conversion in advance of the shekels you are looking to spend. Okay, now there's square meters to square feet. What you actually get, registration varies with each form. You have Arnona, municipalities that charge net and brutto, which means some apartments are registered in the tabu and the Arnona as net that you step, and some municipalities take a little bigger. You'll have the walls included, and some municipalities even take the trash area and the elevator area and the staircase. So you definitely have to take that into consideration. Now, number of rooms. In Israel, all rooms are counted, meaning a 3-bedroom in the USA is a 4-room equivalent here in Israel. Sometimes even living rooms and family rooms add on. So you have to ask your agent, someone who's looking for you, if there's anything that you need to know about bedroom, how many bedrooms, actual bedrooms there are in the house. Now, another one is what floor? In Israel, floors are counted from ground up. For example, a second floor in Israel would be a third floor in the USA. Here we count floors walked up. Now, Corona time deals. There are Corona time deals, and the way these things turn out is a lot of these deals, you'll find things like Airbnb apartments that are currently empty. And we have these on the market now for rent, which means you can get a fully furnished apartment for a good price. And we can get you a fully furnished apartment for sale for a very good price. And you wouldn't pay a lot more than a nice renovated apartment, and it would be fully furnished. So that's also an option with Airbnb. A good agent would be able to give you off-market opportunities. Now, turning a house into your home. I'll give you an option of an apartment that was taken. The kitchen here does not look too appealing, okay? And it was taken out, put into a brand new kitchen, looks amazing. And then you have a bathroom. The next one you'll see is the bathroom. The kitchen is where this bathroom is right now. Much better location for it, and it looks much nicer. Doesn't look the best. It didn't look appealing back then. Today it's very, very nice. This is one of the Airbnb apartments. And the next slide is the living room. Very claustrophobic, very dark, and with the right architect and designer, it looks $1 million. Okay, so that's about it. Thank you very much. And Lashana Abad, Yerushalayim Abnuya. If anyone has obviously any requests, information they'd like to leave us any comments, we have our details on the bottom there. If you'd like to hear about any opportunities or legal questions,
we have a couple more minutes. I'm going to read off some questions that either Debbie or Noam will answer orally. So we'll just try to see if we hit a couple of them before we run out of time here. The first one is, this is about renting an apartment. Do you have to send 12 rent checks if you're initiating rental from afar?
Debbie?
So the answer is that usually, yes, usually that will be a requirement, but many times when you sign while still being abroad, you do not have an Israeli bank account. And for an Israeli landlord, your check from the States may be useless. So the way we usually work out deals for people coming from abroad is that you would give a deposit in advance, you would transfer the money, if you can negotiate that it should sit in escrow by the landlord's lawyer and not in his pocket. And if you, for any reason, do not come, then part of that deposit would be something that would be considered a penalty. And then as soon as you come, you will open a bank account in Israel. You cannot open a bank account without being here. Once you come, you'll open an account, you'll get your checks, and then you'll give them to the landlord. But it is important to put in a clause in your contract that allows you, in a case where you need to get reimbursed for any repairs that you do in the property that the landlord has not done and are his responsibility. In a situation like that, you should be able to give back the check that the landlord will give you back the check that you've provided, and you'll be able to give him a different check with the amount that is diminished for the repair.
Okay, thank you, Debbie. Another question is, if we own an investment property, does that affect buying an apartment as a lien?
So the way it works is that if you own an investment apartment and you make aliyah, you're entitled to use your OLES scale also on the second property that you purchase. You can use your OLES scale benefit also on a second apartment, a third apartment. That's what's so great about this benefit. You can use it also on an investment property.
Okay, and to what age can you take out a mortgage, and what would the percentage be?
So that is an excellent. Oh, do you want to answer that, Noam?
A lot of that also depends on the income.
Correct. I found that in general, it's a good question because many times tagged onto your mortgage, the way it works in Israel is that a component of the mortgage is a life insurance policy. And many times if you're over a certain age, the bank will not want to insure you, or if you have any health problems, the banks will also give you a problem giving you an insurance policy. I found that if you work with the proper banks and the correct mortgage brokers, they can help you secure a mortgage even without the component of life insurance. What's so wonderful about this life insurance, I'm going to add to this, is that in a situation, the reason why banks in Israel require it is because if, God forbid, if you and your spouse take a mortgage to purchase a property in Israel and something should happen, God forbid, to one of you, part of the component of the mortgage is your life insurance policy that will kick in that situation, and then the remaining spouse will no longer have to pay back the mortgage, which is an excellent benefit for people who are struggling, God forbid, in a situation of their spouse's demise.
Thank you. I think we'll wrap up with this last question. What is the average mortgage time period and how many years in the term? Not sure you covered that quite yet.
I've seen,
Do you want to cover
mortgage rates, mortgage periods go from 10 to 30 years. Obviously, the less you take, the less the interest rate will be. So if you're capable of withstanding such a high interest rate or a high return, the interest rate would be a lot lower and the return would obviously be a lot lower. But 30 years is very common in Israel. That's the most there is to take right now. That's about it.
Yeah. And just to add to that, I've had clients who are in their 60s that were able to get a 30-year lease term, so mortgage term. So you're never too old. You should know that banks in Israel are happy to give mortgages even for people who are elderly. It didn't used to be this way in the past, but it is today. And even during Corona situations, even if your income has been affected by Corona, I find that recently I had clients even last week to try to get mortgages. They told me that the banks were much more lenient with how much they needed to show in return and income. And Corona effects have been taken into account by the banks, and they were a little bit more lenient when approving such loans.